Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. We continue our deliberations right here in studio. I'm joined by Jerry Maina, the woman rep for Kirinyaga County, an advocate of the High Court. And mind you, she was fully involved in the campaigns during the Ol-Kalou mini polls. So let's continue with the conversation. And one can only imagine the tension that was there during voting day in Ol-Kalou, because this men masked, firing rounds, tear gas canisters. But one thing stood out. We saw the Ol-Kalou residents standing their ground, braving the intimidation and guarding, quote unquote, the polling stations and guarding their vote. So it's clear that Kenyans are emboldened to protect the vote strictly within the confines of the law, which is quite important. Has the government underestimated the resilience of Kenyans from where you sit? Is the fear factor no longer working? Give us your experience on the interactions with Ol-Kalou residents and how they were brazen enough to protect the ballot.
I think the government has underestimated the anger Kenyans have on the way they are running issues and doing everything, and how they're using state resources to bribe voters. And Ol-Kalou was, I don't even know how to term it, you know. We were there right at the center of it. I happened to be around AC, Ol-Kalou polling station, when it was attacked. So we'd just gone in, we'd done a live, visited a few of the centers, and then we're just coming out. Yeah. Bullets are just ringing in the air. There's also people running helter-skelter. At that point, there's tear gas. And we're trying to make it to our vehicle because every vehicle was not being allowed to enter the polling station. The voters had said, no way, we can't allow it because they were very afraid of vote stuffing.
So both opposition and government?
Yes.
Okay.
You actually had to lower your windows immediately you got to the precincts of the polling station. So it was very chaotic. It was, I think I haven't really quite processed it, the trauma of it, because at one instance I was like, oh my God, am I gonna make it to the car? Because you don't know like where the bullets are coming from. You don't know whether you're going to be hit by a stray bullet. And I want to thank the residents of Ol-Kalou because they're very resilient. We saw them manning the polling stations. A Kenyan general or mini poll, any election in Kenya ends at the polling station. And I believe that Kenyans were very afraid, especially the supporters of one-term movement, that in the event of the government feeling as if they were going to lose the 2027 polls, that they were going to try to bungle the elections by rigging themselves in. But because of the current electoral laws and the election ending at the polling station, the loopholes are now minimal. So the residents of Ol-Kalou understood the game, and immediately after 5 p.m., all access to polling stations was blocked by the residents. You know, there was attempts from around, I think, in some stations as early as 2:30 p.m., in others 3 p.m., in a bid to suppress the vote. At one instance, there was rain. So, of course, people are not streaming to the polling stations. And mostly women, majority of them, of course, when there's violence, they're not able to come out to vote. So there was a suppression of the vote, and I think that was the intention of the government. But it was too little too late because Ol-Kalou people had woken up early as 6 a.m. You'd see very elderly persons like 70, 80 years in the line to vote. And that tells you that they were sending a message. They were saying that we have had enough of this government and we are ready to be on the front line to vote and protect the vote. So it was quite, I think, quite historic to see. Yeah.
But isn't it a recipe for disaster? You've mentioned the electoral code of conduct. Were they like 400 meters away from the polling station while guarding the vote? Because there's some issues where the law becomes so blunt due to the emboldenedness of the population that at times they can throw away what the law says. Was this the case? Was there any manhandling of security agencies on the ground? Was it as per the law should be?
It was actually security agencies that were harassing residents.
Yeah. Though I saw an instance where someone was told to remove everything in their bag to make sure that they're not carrying votes.
They were just making sure that they were not carrying any votes. I mean, I didn't see any. There was no physical harassment in that aspect. They were just observing, helping observe the law and ensure that there was no rigging. I do think that what happens when you push people to the corner, that is what you see. And I have said, and I will repeat again, it is not that the people want to do that. I mean, you just want to vote, go home, enjoy as you wait for the results. That is what any rational Kenyan would want to do. Sure. But then you note that we are dealing with a very irrational government and an IEBC that is hell-bent to be an extension of the executive. So voters understood that they have a right, and once they exercise that right to vote, they felt the obligation to ensure that they got the vote. Unfortunately, Jesse, sometimes that came at the expense of electoral code of conduct. And it is because, like I have said, the system has failed. So when the system fails, whether it is security, whether it is the electoral laws that we have, the way they should be done, the way elections should be carried out, the way the IEBC is conducting itself in terms of even garnering trust as an electoral body that is mandated to carry out elections. Once they fail, when the system collapses, the people have to reinvent the wheel, and they have no option.
Speaking of trust in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, many argue that that result is a clear indication that they're a neutral arbiter, that they do not lean towards, the side of government. So at the end of the day, have they been vindicated from where you sit? And what other issues do they need to look at to ensure that the 2027 polls is not only free, fair, but equally credible?
I don't think IBC has been vindicated. I just think they had no option,
Yeah.
It's like if I come to your house and I'm holding a gun to your head and I say you have to write A, right? That is what IBC did. They had no option. The people of Ol-Kalou gave them no option. And because of the way we conduct our elections, that you have agents that are watching the tallying of the vote. You had the people outside who had to man the stations. We had IBC saying days prior to that, express bribery. That is apparent, prima facie, just on the face of it. That was not bribery, it was the government doing, or executing its mandate. I mean, we haven't seen that in the rest of Kenya. I have seen the people of the Kipsigis people, Bomet and the rest of the counties, Kericho, asking, why can't we see these developments too? Because they were being given as a bribe to voters. But IBC was blind to that fact. As a matter of fact, you do recall they had fined the member for Kipipiri, and they also fined the member for
Nakuru East Town.
Yes. Nakuru Town.
Nakuru Town East. Yes, you got it right. Yeah. Yes.
Right? And then we saw the charade around the security agencies. They were not committed to ensuring that, voters were being protected. So I don't think that they had an option. I don't think that it is the IEBC that had credibility. It is just that the people did not give them any option to act otherwise.
So come 2027, a lot of work still needs to be done by the commission.
No, they do have a lot to do. They do have a lot to do.
Okay, because of course they're facing a trust deficit, and perhaps that's why we host one of the most expensive elections in the region or the world over. Since you've talked about the goodies, what's your evaluation of the persuasion effect of this state-funded project alongside widespread reports of direct voter bribery, cash inducements? Talk to us about its ability to sway the electorate, because Ol-Kalou can be used as a case example, but it doesn't mean that's the case across the country. Borrowing from what we witnessed in Mbeere North, what we witnessed in Malava by-election, just to name a few, how do we reach a point where Kenyans across the board can no longer be bought by their own taxpayers' money.
I think it's unfortunate. You're in a situation where people are living hand to mouth in some instances. And you find that, unfortunately, the 200, 500 mean a lot to them. The right to vote should be exercised independently. You know, we look at the aspect as an equal right. But Jesse, you as a voter, you're not equal to a voter in perhaps, let's even say, Mburodikir, who is living on a bare minimum wage, who does not have the same education as you, who is not as well informed as you are, as exposed as you are. So the right to vote, we presume that it is equal and that the vote is equal, the vote that we cast. But if you look at the intersectionality of things, it is certainly not. So you find that ultimately there are Kenyans that will be induced to vote because they were given the 1,000 or 500. There are instances where chiefs had to be chased away from polling stations. I think you saw a video going around because they were buying votes. They were giving 1,000 bob note to a voter and then marking them like IBC would. They even had access to the ink IBC uses, marking them so that they could not vote again. Rather, they would not vote at all,
yes,
right?
Yes, yes.
So it is quite unfortunate. These instances will keep cropping up. We're just asking the Kenyan people, adopt the Ol-Kalou version. Kula fair, na ukatae, maneno ya serikali.
Well, let's see how it all plays out. But the idea of using money to influence voters is part of that electoral code of conduct that we're speaking of and should be emulated across the country. Let's speak the politics now, because following that DCP victory, focus would naturally turn to replicating the Ol-Kalou by-election result or strategy or blueprint, if you call it, nationally, as focus, of course, shifts to the 2027 general election. Looking at the after effects of the DCP victory, we've seen a couple of issues play out. Politicians from other regions are urging for redirection of development funds to areas that have shown full support to the current Ruto administration. I'd like your response to those who are trying to capitalize on the declining loyalty in Mount Kenya to benefit in one way or the other. Plus, equally, your reaction to the rhetoric of Mount Kenya East versus Mount Kenya West that has been championed by one of the top-ranking cabinet secretaries from the Mount Kenya region. Yeah.
You know, I do believe that it is very critical for us to champion for Kenya, where development is not dangled like a carrot to induce the electorate. And if that were to be the rationale for where development should go, and I mean really, you know, these are the same people who are claiming that Rigathi Gachagua was talking about shareholding, and now they're the ones saying, oh, you know, Mount Kenya is now not loyal, and we should be the ones getting development. The same kind of people. It's very unfortunate to see that kind of thinking being championed by people who purported to represent the best ideals of democratic dispensations. What I would say is that if that were to be the basis for it, then Mount Kenya voted for William in 2022. So he owes them the 5 years development, and then he denies the other regions that are claiming that now they're not loyal to him until they wait to vote for him so they can get the development. And that is a very carnal way of thinking. It is just very basic and crass. And it would be unfortunate. Let the Kenyan people get development, whether they voted for the government, whether they're in Turkana, Bomet, Kirinyaga, anywhere in Kenya, as long as they're Kenyans, they have a rightful share to development opportunities. The rest of the political appointments, the president can decide. I know they're guiding pieces of legislation in regard to that. On Mount Kenya East versus West, I think I thought you'd say the poorest ranking CS in the history of Kenya. I have very low opinion of
he's not here to defend himself.
The CS, so I will not. I'll not go into that. I've engaged him severally on various platforms on TV. I think it's neither here nor there. You know, it's been tried. We've seen now. And it's a point we agree on with the current Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki, who's saying that it's just unfortunate that any leader would want to position such an agenda instead of focusing on service delivery. And it is just another targeted, who can sing to Mount Kenya to confuse them and to just keep the region embroidered in conversations of, oh no, let's not do this kind of politics. We have not had for them championing a South Rift and a North Rift. So I don't know what the agenda is, but we can all tell that it comes from a particular political, formation that wants to keep the mountain divided for selfish reasons.
So you don't think it will see the light of day?
Oh no. And the people proposing the same wield no political influence in the region.
But tell me this, because at times you have to go to basic thinking, because some of the voters will in such a manner when they see, let's say, Professor Kithure Kindiki is on the ballot in 2027 as the running mate, and perhaps the united opposition decided to go another route, and Mount Kenya does not feature on the presidential ticket. Won't some be persuaded to vote along those lines of Mount Kenya East versus West, since this is closer to 2032, since he's on the ballot, rather than waiting on this other side for 2 5-year terms to be concluded, then we get our stake or share of this national cake? I'm sure you've heard of such narratives. How do we counter?
I have, but I do think that now Kenyans have realized that even if you vote for someone from quote-unquote Nyumbani, it doesn't solve your SHA issues. It doesn't build the road for you. It doesn't, put food on your table. And you just need to observe the reactions after the Mbere North by-election, when we saw stories of electricity poles being taken from certain areas and relocated to others.
Well, they said it was maintenance after I don't know how many months.
So I do think that that will be propagated by politicians.
Yeah.
It will. It is. Politicians will sell anything. They'll say this is black even if it's red. But I do think the convincing power of the lying nature of the regular Kenyan politician is diminishing in the face of apparent, economic situations that are dire, health situations that are dire, education sector in a dire state. I do think that lying capacity is diminishing in value.
Let's see how it all plays out. It's no secret, and you've said it, that UDA was decimated in the Ol-Kalou by-election, just managing a paltry 13% of the vote in favor of their candidate. Whether those numbers are a rejection of Mushina as a candidate or a direct extension of a veto against President William Ruto, one thing is clear. It's clearly a step down from the norm that was in Mount Kenya, that the Ruto administration will have a steep climb in Mount Kenya region come the 2027 general election. So how does a united opposition replicate the Ol-Kalou model countrywide? Mind you, and we mentioned this before, out of 10 parliamentary and senatorial by-elections, DCP has only managed to win one. So how do you build momentum from this particular win?
It is not that UDA will have a steep climb. They will have no climb at all. As a matter of fact, it will be a non-starter as a party. I'll just give you a case scenario. When I was running on UDA in 2022, the voters were demanding themselves, who is the person at the top? So it is the party leader that gives credibility to his party. the candidate for UDA in Ol-Kalou could not even put on his posters the photo of the party leader of UDA, who's still my party leader, in the strict sense of things, the president. It is the man at the top that matters. It is actually the credibility of the man at the top that the people vote for when they align themselves to parties. In terms of replicating the same, I do think that we just need to build momentum. We've seen that Linda Mwananchi is doing a good job on the ground. Kalonzo Musyoka is also doing a good job. There's Rigathi Gachagua, who's galvanizing his support base. There's Fred Matiang'i, who's also doing the same, Martha Karua, and the rest. So I do think that what the alternative government needs to do is to ensure that they stick together. If you look at the recent indications of polls, I know that polls are not like, the factual, or rather, but they do give a semblance of how things would look like. You would not have a clear win in the first round. The president of Kenya, as of today, would not win an election to propel him to State House. But if the united opposition were to stick together and, to just be devoid of any inducements of appointments from the government, because they have all of that to offer, I do believe that the alternative government just needs to secure the vote, protect it. We have the numbers. It should be, and inshallah it will be, the next government.
But sibling rivalry in politics...
It's always there. It's always there. It's always there. I do think because everyone is angling to get to the top. Yes.
Okay. So how does the ruling party recover from a 13% approval rating in its own traditional political bedroom? Would you foresee a scenario where focus is shifted on plumbing up their numbers in other regions to perhaps fill the gap that was left in Mount Kenya? Because at the end of the day, politics is a game of numbers. How do they maneuver out of this particular hole you say they dug themselves in? Because just today we heard the DCP party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, mention that some government-allied leaders are giving him phone calls. Perhaps the season of political transfers is almost here. So what's the next step for this ruling administration?
It's actually, it's about time. It's that time when people are moving and jumping ship from maybe both sides of a political divide for different reasons. And I'm very lucky that I read the mood of my people quite early. So I will not be jumping to anywhere I'll be sticking to where I'm at. I do think that we saw recently, I think it was in the news, must have been ran by the Standard, that there was an apparent meeting in, it must have been Changamwe, somewhere in the coastal region, and it was an ODM meeting, and then when there were averments that, it was the president who had, and that they're supporting the president, the people started leaving. And that is a situation the government will find itself in, and UDA as a party. And anything that will be aligned with UDA will lose the goodwill of the Kenyan people. That base is traditionally, no, it is a Standard that ran it,
Yeah.
And that base is traditionally an ODM base. Could you imagine that DCP party, which was not even 1 year old as of last year, November, won 30% of votes in the Magarini by-election. We had no inroads, no networks. We just landed there. It was myself, the current senator of Kirinyaga County, a few other members of the county assembly, our MCA Madenge, and we actually managed to get 30%. It is because the Kenyan people are looking for an alternative to this government. They're not looking for a friend of this government or an ally of this government. So if your base is traditionally ODM and you decide that you now want to move it to UDA or hand it over to the president, the people will leave you like we saw them living.
But a day in politics is a long time. We have roughly a year and some change to the 2027 general election. we're dealing with a political mastermind who has been repeated time and time again. He's never lost an election. And this time around, it seems that development might be the dangling carrot in a bid to endear the Kenya Kwanza administration, or is it the broad-based government, to the masses. We've seen a resurgence of the construction of Mombasa roads, which had stalled for quite some time. And listening from the rhetoric of the broad-based partners, they seem to think that, being in government means more development in our regions. So how will you counter a narrative built on development where the president keeps on saying, you will judge us by what we have done? And that's how we've seen Kalonzo Musyoka and other leaders becoming the butt of their joke in terms of what they've done for all those years they were in government. So how will we counter that narrative?
I don't think people overestimate the political prowess of the president. And I say this as someone who has worked with him and who knows him. And sometimes people build a facade, or they build a personality that is larger than life. And that is what the president sold to Kenyans. When we were canvassing for votes in 2022, we promised the Kenyan people heaven on earth. We were promising them that cooking gas would be at 300. We were promising them that, they would have free Wi-Fi, that they would be working, tapping from home, the young people. And I mean, like I've said, the lies come to an end. And I think there's a Swahili saying, I'm missing it a bit, but it's something about ujanja, And I think the craftiness of the president, he's cornered. He's in a corner and he's trying to outmaneuver. But I think he's ran out of the cards that he had to present to the Kenyan people. And it is because he went ahead of himself to promise too much and has done so little and is doing extremely poorly on human rights and security, and in terms of even the basic needs like a thriving economy where people can put food on the table. So if you were to look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he's doing extremely poorly in regard to that. So if you have a road just right outside your home and you cannot even sleep in your house, I mean, what is it for? The country is not secure. If you have a road and you cannot put food on the table, so the basic needs, I think he did, he went around to do the things that in terms of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs were, we would say, inverted. So for me, social security, access to food, shelter, security, those are basic things that, unfortunately, and you've said a day in politics is long, we have been at this for 2 years now. It's not going to get any better, if anything. The funds are dwindling because they're being spent indiscriminately in terms of, trying to convince people here. It doesn't work here, okay, fine, let's go here. It just won't be enough.
So is the opposition capitalizing on a protest vote against Ruto? Or are you providing alternatives? Because this has come up time and time again. Where is your agenda, your manifesto? Because your critics would say DCP perhaps is riding on the emotions of the impeachment proceeding that happened in 2024 in order to vote out Ruto without providing alternatives. Yeah.
I don't think it's DCP is riding on the impeachment. I do think that even prior to the impeachment, the Kenyan people, and by large, and in specific Mount Kenya people, were disgruntled by the government. Mount Kenya people are business people. You hit the economy, you hit their pockets, you hit their hearts. With the recent finance bill that was passed by the National Assembly, in terms of how it's going to cascade down to the business of importation and all that, it's further going to hit small traders. So I don't think that it was capitalizing basically on the impeachment. I think it's 2 years ago. People had just they'd gotten okay with the way things went. They'd made peace with it. I do think that it was even prior to that, what we promised them and what we are delivering. In regard to your other question, what are we offering Kenyans? We haven't seen the launch of manifestos yet. I do believe that political processes and that stage is going to come. You're going to hear what we're offering. We are canvassing support right now. We are asking for the views of Kenyans on how they think things could have been done better and what they think we can do in terms of education, healthcare sector, and the economy and agriculture. So I don't think that it is about us not offering solutions. I mean, really, the government is the one now in charge. We should not be the ones doing the homework for them. They have a litany of advisors. They can do the job. We will give our manifesto when we are ready, and it will be just in time.
Okay, holding your cards close to your chest. I think that's it in terms of politics, but it would be a disservice to let you go without talking about that LSK boycott and matters to do with judicial integrity, because LSK announced a full nationwide boycott of all court services that's supposed to happen this Wednesday, July 22nd, over persistent breakdown of the administration of justice and rampant corruption. From where you sit, is this the way to go? Others are pushing for negotiations in order to avoid a situation where Kenyans in need for legal services cannot access. You know, we wouldn't want a situation where perhaps someone is looking for bond or bail and their case is set for Wednesday and they still have to remain incarcerated due to such push and pull between the LSK and the judiciary as is. Talk to us about your take on the matters that were raised by the LSK, of which I'm sure you're a member, vis-a-vis what the court said. They were pushing for negotiations, and they equally released a breakdown of some of the issues highlighted by LSK and how they could be or they have been solved so far.
I have said the judiciary is not without fault.
Yes, yes.
It's not a perfect judiciary. Are there instances of corruption? Yes. Is it extensive in some cases? Yes. The LSK is a body of advocates, and they have every right to boycott court sessions as we look for solutions. Is it going to just magically be solved just because we boycott court sessions? Certainly not. You know, we have JSC, we have other avenues. I do believe we should be pursuing them and we should be relentless in it. We just shouldn't do it for the sake of doing it. I think there are other ways that we can pursue officers that we believe are corrupt or engaging in corruption. And it is the system. The system is just a bit, it's a bit broken in some ways, and it's unfortunate to see. And it reflects the society that we live in, just as our politicians reflect the society because they don't vote themselves in. They're voted by the society. So we do have a lot to do in terms of even social re-engineering, the way people believe things should be done. You know, you get a traffic strike on the road, you're thinking, well, parting with a paltry 2,500 is easier than having a long way of going to court and ending up paying a fine of 20,000. So it is, I think, our way of life. I think we have, we are morally depraved as Kenyans. You know, we seem to be denigrating as a society in terms of morality and how we want to do things. So it is the same thing being reflected now in the judiciary, but the LSK, I believe, should do more than just boycott courts.
Yeah, at the end of the day, let's see how it all transpires. And of course, as the Fourth Estate, will be here to cover the developments that play out on Wednesday. Asante sana, Jeremiah, for your time. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation on the state of the nation. She is an advocate of the High Court and the woman representative for Kirinyaga County, allied to the DCP party. By the way, since you're a lawyer and you're a member of UDA,
yes.
When are you shifting camp? Are you still waiting for the 2027 election? Are you going to force by-election? Since
I think I've already said that, you know, and I've been asked that several times. See, if I were to force a by-election, it would be merely to move parties, right? Now, the president deviated from the vision that we promised the Kenyan people. So if he has not done the same, why should I?
Two wrongs
And
don't
why
make a
would I?
right.
No. Why would I cost the Kenyan taxpayer an extra 100 million Kenya shillings that is not even there?
All right, we'll agree to disagree. Asante sana for your time. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're adequately informed. Keep it right here. My name is Jesse Rogers. Good evening.
Get ready for the ultimate thrill of football action.
Martinelli! Deflection on the way through!
The most exciting sports show and predictions that will keep you on the edge of your seat.
Liverpool against Manchester City is going to be a draw.
Join us as we bring you expert analysis, exclusive interviews, and the hottest predictions for the upcoming matches.
Tuna focus on which games. Tusker has a good history against Leopard.
Mechi usiweke kichwa popote.
From the tactical masterclasses to the jaw-dropping goals, we've got it all covered. Don't miss out on the excitement where every kick, every goal, and every prediction matters. The Football Sleep, every Friday from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m.
No matter who you are or how you play, only emotions count. This is your moment, your move, your success formula. Bets for everyone. Reveal yourself. 1xBet.
Dial star 811 star 911 hash to get this as your skiza tune. KTN, ndio home.
Kunitoa kwa roho ya hii watu ya mlima ni kama kukata miti ya mugumo na wembe.
He has walked through political storms.
If Kenyans cannot get services because of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, we'll be pleading, pluck him out from government.
He has faced triumphs, setbacks, and moments that tested his resolve.
Ulinitoa kwa ofisi, lakini kunitoa kwa roho za hii watu ni kibarua.
Then Kembere, a tough political test, and some doubted his path. But he refused to give up.
Tutakutana na huyo mwanaume hapa Nyandarua.
Now enters Ol-Kalou.
Wewe Kasongo, nilikwambia usiguse mlima. Si nilimwambia?
The political battlefield that became a defining moment.
Hawa watu ya mlima hawapendi usaliti.
Sami Douglas Kamau Wawero of DCP 35,440.
Amepata adabu hajapata.
Na msikuwe na wasiwasi. Relax.
Wamekuonesha hao, wamemalizana na wewe.
This Wednesday, we sit down with the DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua for an in-depth conversation on the politics of the day, the future of his party, and the significance of Ol-Kalou. Join us this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. only on KTN.
Morning routines, daily hustle. But there's always time for the game. Some go by instinct. Others run the numbers. Some live for the thrill. Some play chill. No matter who you are or how you play, only emotions count. This is your moment, your move, your success formula. Bets for everyone. Reveal yourself. 1xBet. This is KTN.
Hii ni Dira Dunia kutoka idhaa ya Kiswahili ya BBC. Jina langu ni Hamida Abubakar. Taarifa yetu kwa usiku huu: Andy Burnham ateuliwa rasmi kuwa waziri mkuu wa Uingereza. Uongozi wake utakuwa wa aina gani kwa taifa hilo na washirika wake? Uingereza ina waziri mkuu mpya na ni waziri mkuu wa 5 katika muda wa miaka 4. Andy Burnham amemrithi Keir Starmer aliyetangaza kujiuzulu kwake mapema mwezi Juni kufuatia matokeo duni ya uchaguzi wa mitaa. Burnham anayechaguliwa kama mbunge mwezi uliopita alikuwa kiongozi wa chama tawala cha Labour Ijumaa wiki iliyopita. Yeye na Keir Starmer walimtembelea Mfalme Charles katika kasri la Buckingham mapema leo, wakati waziri mkuu anayeondoka akiwasilisha rasmi kujiuzulu kwake. Mfalme pia alimtaka Andy Burnham kuunda serikali mpya ya Labour. Burnham anasema kuwa atazingatia sera ya nyumbani zaidi na kuimarisha hali ya maisha kwa Uingereza. Katika hotuba yake ya kwanza kutoka Downing Street kama waziri mkuu, ameahidi uthabiti zaidi wa kisiasa.
I am acutely conscious.
Nafahamu fika kwamba mimi ni mtu wa 6 katika muda wa miaka 10 kutembea katika barabara hii. Waziri mkuu wa 7 tangu mwaka 2016. Kufanya wakati huu kwa wakati wa kutafakari na kuwa na ari mpya. Inahitaji kizazi chetu cha wanasiasa kuchukua fursa na kupambana na hali ya sasa. Uingereza inahitaji kuonyesha dunia kwamba tunaweza kuwa imara tena. Na hiyo ndiyo changamoto yetu. Kufanya siasa zetu ziwe bora. Najua watu nyumbani wamechoshwa na siasa. Nimewasikia na nataka kuwa mkweli kwenu. Hatujakuwa bora na tunahitaji kuwa bora.
Akitoa hotuba yake ya mwisho kama waziri mkuu asubuhi ya leo, Keir Starmer alitetea utendakazi wake akiwa ofisini, ikiwemo sera ya masuala ya kimataifa.
Tunakumbana na dunia ambayo maadui zetu wanafanya kila wawezalo kutugawanya kwa sababu ya maadili yetu, uhuru wetu, na kwa kweli kwa sababu ya msimamo wetu kuhusu watu wa Ukraine. Na kwa hiyo ni muhimu kwamba tukumbuke ukuu wa Uingereza yote inayotuzingira. Tunapojadiliana jinsi ya kutatua shida zetu, kuna mambo tunayoyarithi kutoka kwa nchi yetu na tabia yetu yanayoweza kutupa ujasiri kwamba tunaweza kubadilisha nchi yetu kuwa bora zaidi.
Na kabla ya kufikia hatua ya leo, waziri mkuu huyo mpya aliwania uongozi wa chama cha Labour mara 2 na kushindwa, na baadaye akawa meya wa eneo la Greater Manchester kwa miaka kadhaa. Agnes Penda anaangazia safari yake hadi kufikia alipo.
Mzaliwa wa Liverpool, kijana Andy Burnham alipenda muziki na mpira wa miguu. Alichaguliwa kwa mara ya kwanza kama mbunge akiwa na umri wa miaka 31 na aliwahi kuwa waziri wa chama cha Labour. Mnamo mwaka 2010 aliwania uongozi wa chama hicho kwa mara ya kwanza, lakini akashindwa. Alijaribu tena miaka 5 baadaye na akapoteza tena, wakati huu akishindwa na Jeremy Corbyn. Alijiuzulu kama mbunge mnamo mwaka 2017 na akachaguliwa kuwa meya wa Greater Manchester. Wasifu wake na umaarufu uliongezeka wakati wa janga la corona.
Hii si njia nzuri ya kuongoza nchi wakati wa tatizo la kitaifa.
Akawa mbunge tena baada ya kushinda uchaguzi mdogo wa Juni mwaka huu. Kwa mbunge nilikuwa sharti kwake ili awe kiongozi wa chama cha Labour. Hatua yake ya mwisho hadi kuwa waziri mkuu.
Na ili kufahamu zaidi tunaungana mubashara na mchambuzi Abdulaziz Jand akiwa London, Uingereza. Abdulaziz, karibu sana. Ukisikiliza hotuba ya waziri mkuu mpya leo, unaichukuliaje na inaashiria atakuwa kiongozi wa aina gani ama uongozi wake utakuwa vipi?
Asante sana. Hotuba yake kwa kiasi kikubwa imeleta imani na kuashiria tumaini jipya kwa chama cha Leba, kwamba kiongozi anakuja kuinusuru chama cha Leba na kuelekea katika miaka miwili iliyobaki ya muhula wa